Well, welcome, Mayor. This is not you've been to Iowa several times before. You were just at the Lincoln dinner.
That's right.
Not too long ago. So thank you for participating in that as well. But is this the first time you've been to our state fair?
It is, and I didn't realize that it was just as cold as Miami.
Thanks for bringing the heat. We appreciate it. You should feel right at home, right?
This is amazing. I feel like I'm at Disney World. It's unbelievable. It's great.
Well, listen, thank you for being here. And one of the things I just want to jump right in on because I think it's just incredible. You know, Miami is one of the fastest growing cities in America. What's something that you've done as mayor that you would implement as president? So talk about some of the success that you've had there and how you take that to the White House.
Well, first of all, thank you, Governor, for the invitation. And thank you all for being here. Thank you. Yeah. I'll tell you, Iowa's a special place for me because it's the first poll that qualified me to be on the debate stage. So it's near and dear to my heart. And I've always felt from the first minute, before I answer your question.
No, this is your time.
I've always felt from the first minute that Iowans have an incredible IQ and an incredible the due diligence that they're doing, the gravity with which they take this decision, which is, frankly, the most important decision in the world, right? This is the most important job in the world. And the way they take their role, it's really incredibly inspiring for me as an American, as someone whose parents were kicked out of their country of birth, seeking freedom here in this beautiful country. And so what we've done in Miami is we have stuck to what I call freedom agenda, right? We've kept taxes low, shocking, right? We've actually lowered taxes to their lowest level ever in history. And shocking correlation, 14% growth last year. So when you talk about last year in the United States, we grew 2%. We grew 14% last year, 12% the year before. So double-digit growth. The second thing we did, shocking, we supported our law enforcement. Supported the men and women in blue. I mean, something that never used to be controversial, never used to be political, and another shocking correlation. Crime went down. We hired the most officers in our history. We gave them the best technology. And last year, we had the lowest homicide rate since 1964 per capita. This year, we're 37% below that number. To give you some context on that, Chicago, which has led the country in homicides for 11 straight years, and it's a bigger city, so I want to compare apples and apples, 700 homicides last year. This year, to date, we have 17. Incredible difference. And so we keep people safe. We keep people safe. And the last thing that we do is we lean into innovation. We believe, and I believe, and part of my reason for running for president is this fundamental belief that our future, our children's future, is not guaranteed. I have a 9-year-old and a 5-year-old. My only regret today is that they're not here. They're getting ready for school, and I know particularly my son would love it. And I can tell you that I am, as a parent, very concerned that we are not positioning ourselves to win the generational economic battle that's before us. We're doing everything backwards. We're amassing these massive debts, which we're passing along to our children. We are not confronting China, both as an economic threat and as a national security threat. I mean, they have the audacity to now say they're going to go from a spy base in Cuba to a military training base 90 miles away from our shore. They have 80 to 90% of our advanced microchips that they make in Taiwan. If they take Taiwan, it will put us into a depression. Not only will it put us in a depression, you can kiss these things goodbye.
Right.
You can kiss our cars that use our technology goodbye, our weapon systems. And of course, unfortunately, they're graduating more PhDs in computer science than we are. They have more 5G than we do. And they're focusing on quantum computing to break our codes and read our emails. Do you want the Chinese reading your emails? I don't think so. I don't want them reading my emails.
And you're trying to make, I think, Miami the kind of the center, a hub for technology and innovation, both. And with all of the things that you're putting in place, I can see why that's happening. But so Biden's border crisis is affecting all 50 states. We're experiencing it here. What the statistics over the last 3 months are just Really
Shocking.
concerning, shocking, unconscionable. You know, but it still is a little bit worse in places like Texas and Arizona and Florida. So we asked Iowans to submit some questions, and Katie from Madison County wanted to know what 3 specific actions you'd take to control the border.
Well, I was there yesterday, and I saw the difference in intentionality from the last administration to this administration. I literally stood in a junction where the last administration's wall stopped and this administration's wall began. And to give you a sense, one of the walls was about 30 feet high, unclimbable. The other one, my 9-year-old would have had a fun climbing in about 2 seconds. So I think we need to be intentional about protecting our border. We need to, instead of, you want to defund something, let's defund the 87,000 IRS agents. Why don't we defund that? And why don't we use that for Border Patrol agents? And why don't we use that for technology to make sure that our border is safe? And then the last thing is, I think we really need to designate the cartels a terrorist organization. They are flooding our streets with fentanyl. 80 to 90,000 Americans die every year. That is the equivalent of a 747 crashing every single day. Think about the national tragedy that was the submersibles that collapsed. Think about if a 747 were crashing every day. And that's not even to talk about the human trafficking crisis, which has now become a bigger revenue generator for the cartels than drugs. It's awful. I don't know how many of you have seen Sound of Freedom, but the executive producer, I don't know how many of you guys seen Sound of Freedom? Yeah? So it was executive produced in part by someone who lives in Miami, and he was telling me the story of what they do with kids. And as a father, it's just shocking. And we need to have a strong president that projects American strength. We have a president right now that is projecting weakness, and that is emboldening our enemies across the world to get more aggressive. And we're seeing that aggression, and it's creating problems for us.
Yeah, amen. You know, we talked about it a little bit, but 9 of the 10 largest cities are ran by Democratic mayors, and we've talked about how they're increasing taxes, and you're the only one that's led by a Republican, but increasing taxes, crime, just spending. Another issue that we see that's just unconscionable is the homelessness in a lot of the larger cities and the impact of that. So how have you addressed that as the mayor of Miami?
So I'm going to talk about both of them separately. I think the first one's important because when you get kicked out of a communist country, part of what they do in communist countries is they take away everyone's guns. Okay? And when you look at our country, the Democrats will tell you that that gun violence is a scourge in America, and that's true at some level, right? But if you drill down on this issue, you'll see that America has the 7th most homicides per capita in gun violence, right? That's shocking. But then if you take out the top 5 cities, which are all run by Democrats, which all have the strictest gun laws, okay, we go from number 7 almost to number 100. So we're at the 50%, right? We're like half of all the approximate 200 countries in the world, right? So it's a totally different narrative when you take that out. So I think we need to be fair about that issue. When you talk about homelessness,
and they have some of the strictest gun laws in the country.
That's what I'm saying.
It's ridiculous.
That's my point. My point is, you take out the top 5 cities, you go from 7th to 190 something. Secondly, and so I think we just need to be clear on these issues. Sometimes, just people are not being honest, intellectually honest about some of this stuff. On homelessness, we did something called a homeless trust. We created a bed tax for tourists. Our residents don't pay it. Yep. Tourists pay it. It's 1%. And we created about $50 million in annual revenue. And we created a network because we're compassionate. And there's this sense that if you're from a Republican city, you don't care about people or what I call the least, the last, and the lost. And I think that's absolutely false. I'm Christian, and I believe that we are defined by how we treat the least of our brothers and sisters. And so we gave them mental health counseling, drug treatment, but vocational training, very important. I created a construction management program so that they could learn construction skills and go right into the labor force. We did a culinary program. We're a big, obviously, as you know, we're a big tourism city, and so we have a tremendous hospitality industry, which is a beautiful industry because it's an industry where you can start at the bottom, make it all the way to the top. She's nodding her head. Do you know what I'm talking about? My wife is in hospitality. That's why I'm so polite. Okay? And, you know, it's beautiful to see someone graduate as a chef that was homeless just a few weeks ago, go right into a kitchen, which is a sorely needed a position to fill in our city, and they're making a good amount of money right away. So we're teaching people how to fish. We're not giving them fish. That's what you do in socialist countries. That's why if you go to Cuba, and I've never been to Cuba. My grandfather was arrested by Castro. His brother died in a Cuban jail, seeking freedom. If you go to Cuba, you'll see that it's a snapshot of what it was in the 1960s. It's like a time capsule, right? So we in this country believe in freedom. We believe in economic freedom. We believe in freedom of speech, to not be censored. We believe in the freedom to protect ourselves, right, to bear arms. And these are American, traditional American values that we have to fight for. But I think why I'm running for president is because I can present something different to the American people as a Republican, right? I believe I can get Hispanics, which are critical, by the way, regardless of who the candidate is, whoever you choose, the Hispanic vote's going to be critical because 20% of Hispanics are undecided, and that's 60 million Americans, 60 million. And our last presidential elections were decided by very, very small margins, less than 100,000 votes, right? So critical demographic. People in cities, critical demographic. When I was first elected mayor, we had lost Dade County the year before, which is about 2.8 million people. We lost it to, the former president lost it to Hillary Clinton by 30 points in 2016. Last year in the midterms, after I got reelected by 80%, we won it by 10 points, a 40-point swing. We have to do that across urban America. There's no reason why people in cities, particularly in crime-ridden cities and homeless-ridden cities, should be voting Democrat. They're not delivering. They're not delivering. And then lastly, it's unbelievable to me that a Democrat won young voters, right? I know they're giving away education, you know, like free debt. No debt. It's like fat, free fat, you know? But I mean, come on. We have such a prosperity platform to create, you know, an innovation economy. Even in agriculture, you're seeing so much innovation, right? I mean, it's such a plus for yields, whatever the case may be. You know, cleaner biofuels, etc. It's really beautiful to watch as an American to see this innovation creating cleaner and cheaper fuels to power our country.
Well, so that was one of my questions. How do we ensure that, you know, our young people really do recognize the threat of communism and the value of democracy? And we were talking about it upstairs. How do we reach out to them? Do you get in front of them? They see a successful Republican young mayor who has experienced, his father was exiled from Cuba. But do we do a better job of telling that story? Do we get in front? What do we do? How do we fix this?
I do think the leader matters because the one thing we control is what we talk about. I control what I spend my time on. And this is something that is obviously very near and dear to my heart because my family suffered greatly as a result. My dad came at 12. My mother came at 7. My dad got a full scholarship to high school, presidential scholarship to college, 2 graduate degrees from an Ivy League school, has written 9 books and speaks 5 languages. It's a beautiful American story, right? Didn't ask for anything, has only gratitude in his heart for this country. And I think we have to disabuse the lie of communism. And if we don't do that, I'm telling you, it's the easiest sell in politics. It's so easy to say, hey, why don't we just take from people who have more and give it to these people? It never works. It's never worked, and it's never going to work. And I think having someone that's been intimately impacted by it gives you a tremendous, and someone that happens to be young and has built an innovation economy. We're #1 in the nation in tech job growth. Think about that, Miami. And by the way, you know, people, sometimes I talk to people and say, well, it's Miami, you know, and I said, no. Miami in the 1980s was the murder capital of America. You guys remember Miami Vice, right? Now it's Miami Nice.
Hey, Iowa Nice, Miami Nice,
There you go.
it all works. We know a little bit about that, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, and you know, we were the 5th poorest country in America in 2000. Now we're 115. We've reduced poverty by 50%. So, I mean, these are things that's my record. And I think it's important to have a good record. It is important to have a good personality. when you run for president, because you need to have someone that can build relationships, that can build trust. Our relationships around the world are fractured, and we're seeing how interconnected we are when you think about the production of microchips in Taiwan affecting us here. The fact that the Chinese are spying on us through balloons or buying our properties, you know, these people have absolutely no shame. It's unbelievable.
So we also ask Iowans to weigh in with questions. And so, you know, here we got gas prices rising again. Your inflation still a problem. Majority of Iowans, 51%, you know, are pessimistic about the economy. They still think it's in a downturn. It's about to get worse. So Brett from Davenport wants to know, as president, what steps would you take how do you take what you've done in Miami and take it again to D.C. to lower gas and food prices, but really to deal with Bidenomics?
Yeah, you guys aren't convinced about Bidenomics yet?
We're living it, right, every single day. They try to tell us we're not, but we are.
Well, I define Bidenomics as the poor get poorer, right? You know, Democrats are supposed to be for the poor, but I don't understand a policy where inflation goes up, so your purchasing power goes down, your dollar is actually worth less money, and then if you want to borrow money, it gets more expensive. It actually goes up. So I don't understand how that benefits the poor. Whatever economist that he's using, I certainly would fire. And whoever he's using for branding, I would fire too, because Bidenomics, Latinx, they're as unique as San Antonio tacos. Whatever the branding they're using, I would fire that branding person. That person's got to go. But I would do two things right away. The first is we need to balance our budget. We absolutely need to balance our budget. We cannot live as a U.S. government any different from how its people live. And I'll tell you, when I first got elected, we had a $115 million deficit on a $600 million budget. That is 20% expenses over income. We cut it in 1 year, and we balanced it in 1 year. Was it easy? Absolutely not. Was it painful? Absolutely. I had employees that didn't shake my hand for 2 years. It was tough. But now that they see the double-digit growth, now that we have the highest reserves in history, now that in the midst of the federal government being downgraded in its bond rating, we were upgraded to the highest rating ever by S&P, now our employees see, oh, wait a second, this guy was onto something. He understands the way the economy works. And I think it's important that as a mayor, this is very unique to my candidacy. I have public sector experience, but I also have private sector experience. If you look at the field, you're going to see people that either have a lot of public sector experience or have a lot of private sector experience. And I think the public sector people that only have public sector experience have a tendency to want to just use government to do everything, impose their ideology. The private sector people have ideas that maybe are kind of a little outlandish, right? And so they're not really based that much in reality. A person who has public sector experience and private sector experience understands, A, how to push the envelope, right? Because you want to have good ideas. You know, you want to have ideas that are provocative at some level, but then knows how to execute them, how to implement them, how to create the sort of, the consensus that's necessary. And that's why getting elected by 85%, reelected by 80% shows that I can unify this country in a way that is desperately needed with the division that we have, which, by the way, only favors one person, our enemies. They're the only ones that love this division. I always say this, the kryptonite of democracy is division, and we're giving it to them.
Yep, could not agree more. You know, COVID gave parents a front row seat into what was happening in our classrooms, and I'm proud to say in Iowa we really have emboldened parents. We've passed one of the boldest universal school choice programs in the country. Thanks for the moms and the grandmas out there and grandpas just really leaning in and expecting more, and I think that's part of the problem, that our kids really don't understand the history of this country and the values that we bring to the table. So just as president, how do you address educational freedom and the movement that we're seeing take place across this country?
It's such a no-brainer. I created, it's actually starting now in August. I don't know, Sol, if you know the exact date that the Miami Tech Charter School is starting. August 21st, we begin our first city-based tech charter school. And so students in Miami will be able to go to school for free at that school of their choice, and they're going to be able to graduate. We're doing it in conjunction with our community college, which is the largest community college in the country. So they're going to graduate high school for free with an associate's degree. in a tech field, which is, of course, the growing sector of our economy. Our economy is expected or projected to grow over 15% of the GDP being digital jobs. So we have to prepare our youth for those jobs. Those are high-paying jobs. We're number one in wage growth in the country. And so we believe in educational disruption. Yep. I can tell you that the other thing we did was we set up a bank account that I funded for every kindergartner in my city to teach them financial literacy, teach them how to save money for them and their parents. We brought them through the program. And then we focused on 2 scholarships for universities, for Pell Grant recipients. And I went out to the private sector. You'll appreciate this, Governor, because one of the things that we do is we run what I call the corporation, which is the government. But we're also conveners. We're ideators. We create ideas. We convene people. We create initiatives that are oftentimes funded by the private sector.
Right.
So I went out to the private sector, and I got 2 scholarships fully funded by the private sector, a little bit of government funding, like 1/11 of the total. And one of them was for Pell Grant recipient kids in my city, the poorest kids in the city that are eligible for Pell Grants. If they want to get a STEM degree, they go to college for free. Not debt forgiveness. They earned it. They go to college for free. And the same for the first in family. If they're the first in their family to go to college and they have a Pell Grant recipient, they go to college for free. We raise the money in the private sector to do that.
Excellent. Good job, honestly. Okay, so we're going to do the Fast 3, and then we're going to give you the final question, and then we're going to let you get down there and interact with some of the Iowans. But, okay, give me one funny campaign moment on the campaign trail.
I don't know if it's funny or, sort of shocking. I didn't realize what an advantage it was not to have a private plane.
Yes.
I can tell you, I was at an event, and somebody spoke before me, and I saw them leave, and I'm not going to say what candidate it was, with this nice bus with their picture on it. And they left the event, and I realized that they were going to be home that night. I had to sleep here, and I didn't get home until 10 p.m. the following day. So I think it's, it's just interesting how this process plays out and the things you learn in the process of how to be efficient. So
along the way, right?
Along the way.
Right. Okay.
Absolutely.
I don't know how long you've been at the fair, but if you've had any food, what's been your favorite fair food, or what are you looking forward to having?
I am looking forward to having the corn dog. I'm sorry.
Woo! Nope. It's a favorite. You can't hardly leave without having one.
It is, and I'm a fan, and I don't know. It's just, it is what it is.
I know. I told him
I'll work out later tonight.
There we go. And you're going to get a lot of exercise, believe
me.
For
sure.
Okay, what's your favorite walkout song?
My Part of Town.
Okay.
Yes. It's a good one.
Alrighty, we might get to
Either
hear it in
that
a few
or
minutes.
Where the Streets Have No Name from U2.
Okay.
Yeah, Where the Streets Have No Name. I think that was better.
Okay, so final question. As I travel the state, Iowans tell me they're looking for a leader that will stand up for the American people. They'll stand up for this country and really our freedom, who have the moral conviction to do the right thing, like when it's hard, when it's not easy, that has a vision and resolve to deliver starting day one. But most importantly, they say we gotta have somebody that can win. We need to put a Republican in the White House in 2024. So can you tell those of us that have joined us today why you're that person?
Look, I have absolutely no doubt that I would be an impossible candidate for the Democrats to beat, because I attack 3 core constituencies that if they were to lose, they would lose the election by a landslide. I mean, it would be like an incredible, electoral college victory. If we could win Hispanics, if we could win urban voters, which I've done already in my community, and young voters, it's game over. There isn't a place in the United States where Democrats can win. I've already done that and proven that I have a track record of connecting with those voters. And I think also we've got to think about where the country's going. And when you think about that and you think about your children, you've got to think, who is the best person to lead us into that future? Who understands that future? Who can build an economy and build an ecosystem and pivot our country to make sure that we take advantage of that tsunami of opportunity that's before us? If we don't do it, I'm telling you, we're going to continue to get further and further behind. If we keep spending fictitious money, I promise you, we will bankrupt this country. All we've done is postpone the inevitable. We postponed the debt ceiling debate until after the election. How convenient. How convenient. And so the next president, by the way, which is exactly what happened to me when I became mayor. I became mayor, and like I said, we had cut $100 million from our budget. We got sued 12 out of 13 lawsuits we won. We lost the 13th lawsuit, and we had that liability that was $100 million became $700 million. And I went to my employees and I said, I didn't lie to you 8 years ago when I told you we weren't going to raise taxes and we had to cut expenses. I'm not going to lie to you now. If you bankrupt the city now, when we've just grown 10%, it's over for you. And we settled it at 18 cents on the dollar over time. And we saved the city, and now we have the best financial position. So you need someone who can negotiate. You need someone who has the right personality. You need someone that has the right vision and a track record of success, and I embody all those qualities. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Give him a big round of applause for Mayor Suarez. Thank you for coming to Iowa. We appreciate it.